This video is about computation with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and utilizing a calculator to perform basic computation. So this year you're going to have some assessments that are both calculator and non-calculator. Today we're going to focus on reviewing some computation skills you should already know, as well as beginning to use your graphing calculator. So as a little bit of a review, we have a number line here, and in a number line, remember that your numbers go from negative to positive with 0 splitting those. So when you are adding a positive number, you are going to move to the right of the number line. So if I add 2 plus 3, I'm at 2 and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to end up at 5. Now, when we add a negative number or subtract, we are going to move to the left of the number line. So let's say that we are at 1, and I do 1 minus 3. So I'm going to go back 3 spots, and I'm going to end up at negative 2. So let's review some rules for addition. So when you are adding with the same sign, so that means that both numbers are going to be positive or both numbers are going to be negative. When you add two positive numbers, your sum is going to be positive, and when you add two negative numbers, your sum is going to be negative. So another way to think about it is that you can add the numbers with the same sign and then give them the sign at the end. So for example, we have 3 plus 4 is positive 7, negative 3 plus negative 4 is negative 7. So in number 1, we have 8 plus 3, which is going to get us 11. In number 2, we have negative 11 plus negative 5. So we can still just add 11 plus 5, which is 16, but because both of our numbers are negative, we have a negative answer. And then we have negative 6 plus negative 22. Well, 6 plus 22 is 28, and then we can make that negative as well. Now, what happens when we add with different signs? So when we have different signs, one is going to be positive and one is going to be negative. So to add two numbers with different signs, subtract their absolute values. The sum has the same sign as the added with the greater absolute value. So, for example, we have negative 3 plus 4. Well, we can just do 4 minus 3, which is 1, and it stays positive because 4 is larger. Here, we have negative 3 plus negative 4, so 3 minus 4 would get us negative 1. And it's negative because 4 is the larger number with the negative sign. So in number 4, we have negative 7 plus 9. Well, 9 minus 7 would just get us 2, and we would be positive because 9 is the larger number. In number 6, we have 9 plus negative 3, so we can just do 9 minus 3, which will get us 6. The larger number has the positive sign there. And in number 6, we have negative 27 plus 11, so we can think of that as 11 minus 27. 27 is a bigger number, so we're going to end up with a negative number, which in this case is going to be negative 16. Now, you can always put these in your calculator, but it should be good to start getting some practice with mental math again. Now, when we are subtracting, another way to think about subtracting is adding a negative number, or just regular subtraction like you are used to. So in number 7, we have 8 minus 5, which gets us 3. We have negative 34 minus 30. Now, this should not come out as a positive number, and it should become a negative number that is way bigger than either of those numbers. Think about it as like you owe someone $34 and then you owe them another $30. So this is going to be negative 64. In number 9, we have negative 6 plus negative 12. Now here, when there are two negatives in a row, remember that becomes a plus sign. So we're really doing negative 6 plus 12, which gets us 6. So let's look at some problems with addition and subtraction in a real life context. So on Friday, the temperature is 7 degrees, and on Saturday, the temperature was negative 8 degrees. What is the change in temperature? So we want to see how did we go from 7 to negative 8. So what we can do is we can take our ending temperature and subtract our beginning temperature, and we would get negative 15 degrees. So that is going to be a decrease of 15 degrees because we went down 15 degrees. In number 2, when you wake up to leave for school, the temperature is 53. When you leave school, the temperature is 71. What's the change in temperature? So how do we go from 53 to 71? Well, this time we went from a smaller number to a bigger number, so we know it's going to be an increase. So we can do 71 minus 53. If you want, you can type it in your calculator, and that is going to get us 18 degrees. And because 18 is positive, this is an increase by 18 degrees. Number 3, you are staying in a hotel. You are on the 17th floor. You decide to go up 3 floors to check out the observation deck on the roof. Then you go down 15 floors to the pool. What floor is the pool on? So if you start on 17 and you go up, we are adding floors. So we're going to add 3 floors. Then you went down, so we're going to subtract those floors. So 17 plus 3 is 20. Minus 15 is 5. So the pool is on the 5th floor. Now let's switch and let's look at multiplying and dividing. So multiplication rules. The product is going to be positive if you have an even number of negative factors. So if I have 2 negative numbers, 4 negative numbers, 6 negative numbers, when I multiply them, I'm going to get a positive answer at the end. Our product is going to be negative when we have an odd number of negative numbers. So if I have negative one negative number, or 3 negative numbers, or 5 negative numbers, I'm going to expect a negative answer at the end. So multiplication can be written in 3 ways. We can have it as a dot, we can use parentheses, or we can use star. Now, in middle school, and before that, they were using x. We're going to get away from moving x because in our future units, x is going to become a variable, and then it gets a little confusing as, is this a multiplication or is this a variable? So we're going to get away from using x. All right, so in number 10, we have 4 times 5, which is 20. In 11, we have negative 9 times negative 3. Because they are 2 negative numbers, we are going to get a positive. So we're going to have positive 27. In number 12, we have 5 times negative 10. So 5 times negative 10 gets us negative 50 because we have one negative factor. In 13, we have negative 5 times negative 6 times negative 4. There are 3 negative numbers there, so we should get a negative solution. So we can do this by hand. Negative 5 times negative 6 is 30, times negative 4 is negative 120. Or we can put this in our calculator. When you are using a negative on your calculator, you want the sign next to the decimal point. You do not want the subtraction sign or you're going to get an error. So we have negative 5 times negative 6 times negative 4. And we got negative 120. In 14, we have negative 8 times 1 times negative 10. So we have 2 negative numbers this time, which means we should end with a positive solution. So negative 8 times 1 is negative 8 times negative 10 gets us 80. In 15, we have 7 times negative 3 times 2. So we have one negative number, so we should get a negative solution at the end. So 7 times negative 3 is negative 21, times 2 is negative 42. With division, the same kind of ideas happen here. So if a quotient is positive, then we have an even number of negative factors. And if the quotient is negative, then we have an odd number of negative factors. So in number 16, we have 12 divided by 6, which is 2. In 17, it's written as a fraction, but it's the same thing. Negative 50 divided by negative 10. 2 negatives would get us a positive 5. And then in 18, we have 80 divided by negative 16, which is going to get us a negative 5, because there's only one negative factor this time. The last part of this video, we're going to review a couple of skills for your graphing calculator. So the first is to use a negative number. So when we are using a negative number, our negative sign is going to be to the left of the answer of the enter key. So it's going to be between the enter key and the decimal point. And your calculator may look a little bit different than the one I have on my screen or the one on the note page. So in number one, we want to type -3 minus 15. So we're going to use the negative sign 3 minus 15. And we get -18. In number two, we have 4 minus -12. So 4 minus -12, and that will get us 16. So let's try a couple more. We have -8 minus -5. So we get -3. We have -4 minus 19, which gets us -23. And we have 6 minus -10, which gets us 16. Now, when we have fractions, decimals, and using MathFrac. So when we divide, we're going to use the division key when we see a fraction. So we're going to type 2/5 into our calculator. We're going to do 2 divided by 5. That will get us a decimal of 0.4. If you want to write 0.4, that's fine too. When we have 1/3, 1 divided by 3 gets us 0.3 repeating. So we have 0.33. We're going to put a bar above it to show that it's a repeating decimal. In number 3, we want to type 120 divided by 4.5. And that's going to get us 26.6. And we see the 6, 7, but we know it's repeating. So we're going to say it's 26.66 with the bar to show it's repeating. Now, if I want to put that back into a fraction so it looks nicely, what I'm going to do is hit the math key, which is the third key. If we go second alpha math, we're going to hit math. Our first option, it has that little arrow with frac, which means change it into a fraction. So we hit enter, enter, and we get 80/3. In number 4, they gave us a decimal and we want to go into a fraction. So we're just going to type 0.20. And then we can hit math, enter, enter, and that gives us our fraction of 1/5. Lastly, we have 725 divided by 15. And we want that as a reduced fraction. So after we have our decimal, we're going to hit math, enter, enter, and that's going to reduce to 145/3. So in the next step, when we are going to be multiplying fractions or dividing fractions, we need to use parentheses. If you are going to multiply your fractions by hand, then we are going to multiply the numerator together and the denominator together. So here we can see 2/3 times 4/5. We have 2 times 4, which gets us 8, and 3 times 5, which gets us 15. So let's try doing some of these with a calculator. So in number 1, we have 2/3 times 6/5. So we're going to put parentheses 2 divided by 3, because we want the calculator to know this is grouped together, times parentheses 6 divided by 5, close parenthesis. We hit enter, we get a decimal, but we do not want to leave our answers in decimals, so we're going to hit math, enter, enter. So this is going to be 4/5. In number 2, we have -5 times -10/2. So in our calculator, we would have -5 times parenthesis -10 divided by 2. And that's going to get us +25. In the next two, we are dividing our fractions. So we have 4/9 divided by 3/8. So in our calculator, 4 divided by 9, close parenthesis, divided by another set parenthesis, 3 divided by 8. Math, enter, enter. So that is going to be 32/27. If you were to do a division by hand, you would not divide. You're actually going to multiply by the reciprocal. And we see that that works out to the same answer we got in our calculator. Because we flip our second fraction, we turn it into a multiplication, and then we multiply across. In number 4, we have parenthesis 5 divided by 8. That's our fraction. And we're going to divide that by 12. Math, enter, enter. And that is going to get us 5/96.